Welcome to InnoVIS, a podcast about visas. The purpose of this podcast is to shed some light on one of the most confusing aspects of globalization. Each episode, we look at one country's current visa guidelines for working and studying, and some information on the expat and migrant demographics and history of the place. I'm your host, Eleanor Shafe Chin. Nothing I say is legal advice, career advice, or banking advice. I'm not an immigration lawyer or a representative of a government agency or a life coach, or a banker for that matter. Make sure you check all the information available to you from official embassy websites close to the time of your departure and ask detailed questions of your in country partners. On this episode of Innovis, we're looking at the business visa, salaried employment visa, and the self employed and liberal profession visa in France. Even though there is a stereotype about France and its bureaucratic systems, and while some systems might be in need of an upgrade, France does have a well planned, workable layout. Let's take a look. France is really famous for its paperwork. And in fact, one of my favorite movie scenes is how a frustrated French national took 3 months to put together a dossier that allowed him to leave the country. The movie is called L'Auberge Espagnole, and it's directed by Cedric Clapiche. Let's start with the work visa options. My information this time has come solely from the official France Embassy website, which also gets a 9 out of 10 on the user-friendly scale. Starting off with the basics, there's the short stay and the long stay visa. The short stay visa is generally issued for tourism, business trips, or family visits. It's also issued to persons entering to France to take part in short training programs, internships, conferences, and corporate meetings, or to engage in remunerated activities. So if you're not going to be working for free, you probably need a visa. This type of visa is also required for simple transit through France once outside the international zone at any airport. A common short stay visa is the Uniform Schengen visa. This allows access to 26 Western European countries, including France. This is a visa issued by the Schengen area member country for transit or stay in all or part of the Schengen space. The visa inserted into the relevant travel document bears the name of the territories in which the holder is entitled to stay, and the visa may be valid for one or more entries. The maximum duration of your Schengen area visa will be determined by your nationality and what you're doing, but across the board, this visa and the short stay visa in general does not go beyond 90 days within 180 consecutive days. For a business short stay visa, it will be issued as valid for the Schengen area or a French non European territory, depending on your destination. To obtain your visa, you must demonstrate or prove the link between your professional activity and the purpose of your trip. Some examples of those docs are the offer letter or the invitation to come from the French company side, an admission card to the trade fair or conference, or a commitment by the inviting organization or company to cover all your costs during your stay. Now, if you've got your sights fixed on a longer term work stint, you can go through the salaried employment visa arrangement. Within this category, there are several distinctions depending on what kind of work you'd like to do. Generally speaking, this visa is for when you have a fixed term or permanent contract with a private domestic employer. Your employer will need to fill out the 1518702 authorization request first before you can start your process. That form comes up a lot in the other specific instances of salaried employment, including for a salaried employment short stay. So remember that 1518702. For the long stay visa, additional general elements include the statement salary for a permanent employment contract or the statement travailleur temporaire for fixed term contracts. Think of the visa like a parking slip, always validated within 3 months. Along with the visa application for both short and long term business and salary contracts, you must also submit the work permit granted to you by the employer. If you're employed by a private individual, you must also submit the hiring form signed and completed by your employer. There is a visa wizard on the official webpage, so do take advantage of that. And finally, regarding visa exemption, in any activity case, similar to the Ministry of Manpower rules in Singapore, if the visa wizard proclaims you are exempt from obtaining a work permit, you still need to prove that the activities you'll be doing in France are exempt and are related to the functions that you carry out for your employer in your country. Moving on, let's chat about a seasonal employment visa. If that's a new concept, you can check out another Cedric Klapisch film, C'est qui nous lie, or Back to Burgundy. The love interest of the main female is a good example of a seasonal employee. You can be hired as a travailleur saisonnier, and you're not permitted to work in France for more than 6 months in any 12-month rolling year. You can have several employers, however. They will all have to request authorization for you to work using the form 1518-702. As a seasonal worker, you'll be issued a multi year residence permit. It's a long stay visa, and within the 2 months following your arrival in France, you must visit your local police station to request a multi year residence permit. For any following seasonal contracts, your employer must reapply for the work permit. During the validity period of your multi year residency, you will not need a visa to enter France and take up a new seasonal job, but your new employers must obtain a work permit for you, and you'll have to show that at the border. There is a category within the salaried employment category for being a language teacher. It's called the Language Assistant and Foreign Teacher Visa. For the assistantship, you can be recruited as a language assistant in a French public educational institution. You'll be issued a long stay visa equivalent to a residence permit and bearing the statement Travail temporaire. You must validate it within the 3 months following your arrival in France. For the teaching appointment, the visa is the same as the assistantship, with the exception of the scenario of coming to France to teach immigrant children. For this, you need to check the conditions in these special features applicable to your country. Always enclose the work permit or paper proof of exemption right. And remember, Form 1518-702 is also your friend in this instance. There are also separate visa requirements if you are a model or if you practice medicine. If you want to practice medicine in France, you need to learn to speak French well enough to get yourself onto the Professional Order of Physicians. And to wrap up the salaried employment discussion, there's the internship category. For a coffee pouring starched collar internship, there are two kinds: the professional internship and the observer internship. If you're interning independently of uni with a French company, you're going after the professional internship. If you're doing a university requirement, you'll be doing the observer internship. Regarding the professional internship, if the training course exceeds 3 months, you'll be issued with a long stay visa that says Stagiaire. Don't forget to validate it. You'll also need to include the training agreement in your original application dossier. For the observer internship, it is limited to 3 months, non extendable, and you also need the training agreement signed by your employer to submit to the Public Health Agency. For you who are interns in the original sense as new doctor trainees, in the interest of international hospital cooperation, you can follow an additional practical training course in a French public hospital. You will need your practicing license from your country of origin. You'll be issued with a long stay visa equivalent to the residence permit, and yours is also going to stay stagiaire. You also have to have signed a personal agreement with the establishment hosting you, and that form is also only in French. So if you're going to practice medicine in France, you should speak French. End of discussion. Your agreement will be for a period of 6 months, renewable once. And that particular form I just talked about will be validated by the French authorities before you apply for your visa. The same guidelines go for nursing. So if you wanted to be a nurse in France, shout out to my college roommate. Moving on to another kind of work visa, freelancers and serial entrepreneurs need to look at the self-employment and liberal activity visa. This is for when you want to create or participate in a commercial, industrial, artisanal, or agricultural activity, or work in a liberal profession in France. This visa comes as a long stay visa as well, and it says Entrepreneur Profession Libérale, valid for 1 year on the condition you apply for your validation in 15 days following your arrival. As soon as you arrive, you have to complete all the formalities allowing you to carry out your professional activity. Formalities include some supporting documentation. If you want to set up a new business, you have to demonstrate the economic viability of your project. If you want to work in a liberal profession or an activity that has already been created, you must be able to prove that you have sufficient financial resources. The required supporting documents related to your personal and professional situation are indicated in the Visa Wizard. I'll let you explore that on your own so I don't give you bad advice since I have no idea what kind of business you would like to establish. And finally, as you're putting together your dossier, do check the list of regulated professions because some activity is more regulated than others. Well, that was pretty fun. I'm going to wrap up this discussion of French work visas here for now. And in the second part of the France episode, we'll look at the different nuances on how France wants to attract young, smart people through the student visa, the talent pass, and the coveted EU blue card. We'll also chat about those promised demographic statistics next time. Talk then.